got a massive amount of nostalgia for IndyCar in 1995. It's the year Jacques Villeneuve won the 500 and the title after a season-long battle with Alonso Jr. It was the year 1 year after dominating the event in the car known as the Beast. Team Penske shocked the racing world by failing to qualify at Indianapolis. It was a year with an unforgettable driver lineup of the aforementioned Villeneuve and Unser Jr., but also Ray Hall, Fittipaldi, Michael Andretti, Paul Tracy, Jimmy Vasser, Brian Herta, Gilles de Ferran, and so many more. It was a year where the broadcast team of Paul Page, Sam Posey, and Bobby Unser were at their strongest. But for most, IndyCar in 1995 is remembered as the final year. The final year before the disastrous open-wheeled split in America between CART and the IRL and Tony George's pipe dream that nearly ruined it all. I remember it for all of these reasons, mostly the good ones, but for myself, 1995 in IndyCar is perhaps my most nostalgic season because of Papyrus's IndyCar Racing 2. Released in 1995 and covering the same season, it's these cars, liveries, and circuits which will forever be ingrained in my mind. And so when Reiza announced they'd be making a Formula USA pack for Automobilista 2 and that the first year covered would be 1995, I couldn't have been more excited. Released in chunks since last fall, Reiza's Part 2 of their Racing USA pack has committed this fantastic era of cars to the ever-growing sim. I've already taken a look a few times at the first to be released 1998 set. Although those are a blast to drive, and the 2000 set released about a month ago are some of the most capable of all the American open-wheelers. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a bit disappointed that 1995 was left for last. But for whatever that reason was, Reiza's 1995 season is here for Automobilista 2 and brings with it 5 combinations between 2 chassis and 3 engines to simulate the IndyCar grid of 1995. So I figured this will be a first look of sorts, since I'm definitely going to do a few videos about this pack. The pack itself has been out for just a few hours at this point as I'm recording this, and I've had a chance to play around with it for a bit and thought it might be fun to give you some of my first impressions of it overall. On the driver selection screen here, this is the Formula USA Gen 1, and we now have Gen 1, Gen 2, which are the 1998 cars that we've seen a bunch, and then Gen 3, which I haven't covered, but a lot of folks have, the 2000 cars overall. So Gen 1's the 1995 set, and as it sits right now, like all of the cars released for Automobilista 2, or at least most of them, all the paint schemes and everything are fictional, the drivers are fictional, but they somewhat or very closely do resemble real life in many instances. And hopefully over the coming weeks, the community will do some of the paint schemes and really make this look like 1995. But as I'll point out, there might be a couple difficulties in doing that. But overall, we've got 5 combinations of cars. We've got the Lola and the Reynard chassis from 1995, both the 95 versions of those. And it's an important thing to note that the chassis and engines and everything run in 1990s CART IndyCar varied quite a lot. I think on the 500 grid for 1995, you had many more combinations than that, with some 1994 chassis in the mix. I think some 93 cars tried to qualify for the race, retrofitted to be upgraded, and more engines with the Menard Buick engines, as well as the Penske chassis. So this certainly isn't everything to make this a 1995 dedicated sim, or be like the IDT 95 mod that was released for R Factor a ways back. But I'm okay with it not being 100% the real thing. I think as long as it's fairly realistic and we're not having to stretch our imaginations too much, something like this could be a lot of fun for a sim like Automobilista 2. So we do have 5 different car and engine combinations. We've got, like I said, both the Lola and Reynard chassis with a Lola Ford, Lola Mercedes, Reynard Ford, Reynard Honda, and then Reynard Mercedes as well. So a few different combinations to mix and match and represent most of the combinations that were there in 1995. We'll take a look at the Lola Ford and give you a sense of the different paint schemes that it comes with. Now, each of the car, chassis, engine combinations come with a preset number of paint schemes. This one, the Lola Ford, we've got 4. We've got 2 cars that look a lot like the Newman Haas cars. We've got Scott Pruitt's Firestone car, and then I believe the Dick Simon car of Carlos Carrero. The way this sim works today is you can't actually add more cars to the selection that's available. So whatever Reiza decides to include as far as chassis and engine pairings is what all of the modders and things will have to stick with, at least for now. I know Reiza's been adding some new features in the custom AI stuff to custom select the color of the paint rims. Hopefully they add things like helmets, and then ultimately I really hope they add the ability just to pick what chassis and engine a certain driver uses, because as it is, we're fairly limited in all of the categories to properly represent 1995. Scott Pruitt's Firestone car was always a favorite of mine from this year. Won, I believe, the Michigan 500 in this car is the first win for Firestone in forever. And this car looks fairly accurate because they actually put the Firestone branding on the side. The Firestone tires themselves aren't exactly period correct, but they're not too far off. And of course, the Newman Haas cars for 1995 as well. You had Paul Tracy with the Budweiser scheme, and Michael Andretti here had the Kmart Texaco scheme on the side. I know this one, I always liked when they still had the white as a main part of the scheme, but fake sponsors on all of these will quickly be replaced. I think if I'm not painting them myself, somebody else will. And a thing that's important to note on this is this car actually has Goodyear tires, which the other sets, as far as I know, the 98 set, the 2000 set, none of the cars had Goodyear tires in Automobilista 2, but you'll see some of the ones in 95 had Firestone, some had Goodyear, and that was a major part of the 95 season, was the tire war between Goodyear and Firestone, with Firestone having returned and everything. So to have that represented, I know a lot of folks, including myself, were worried that Reiza wasn't going to include Goodyear tires for some of the cars. Hopefully the tires actually feel different. I haven't had enough time yet to test out cars on both sides to see if they behave any different, but I know looking back at IndyCar 2, for instance, the tires are somewhat different, even if that's just gamifying it a bit. I'm sure they varied week to week, track to track, as to which ones would actually be better. So then we'll jump over to the Lola Mercedes, and this is where things start to get a little weird. For some reason, Reiza have included a ton of cars as Lola Mercedes. Cars like the number 14 here for AJ Foyt Racing that would have been driven by Eddie Cheever was actually a Lola Ford, and you can see Ford on the side. So I'm not sure why this car is under the Mercedes bucket, but maybe just an error where it's placed in the UI. I'm not sure if it performs as the Mercedes does or performs like the Ford should. You also have cars like the unforgettable Pennzoil car with Jim Hall Racing and Gilles de Ferran driving, which in real life I believe was a Reynard, and so this is under a Lola as well, which is very, very different. So obviously all these paint schemes are fictionalized, but they did a little bit better of a job from what I can tell with the 98 set, at least, pairing the fictional paint scheme with the right chassis. I think where this is going to end up coming back to us is with the community trying to paint schemes. We can't change, like I said, the chassis engine that a car is painted as. So we have way too many Lola Mercedes to paint on, whereas a lot of these should be Reynards and other engines and everything. I haven't quite done the math yet to figure out if we pair up the right engine chassis, if we have enough cars in each category, but it doesn't look like it. So that'll be a bit disappointing, at least for a little while. I'll be able to look past some of the cars on the wrong chassis, but it would be nice to have those kind of details, especially because it's 100% possible to do things like that. One thing I thought that was cool, and I don't think we were expecting, is they included a couple cars painted like the Menards cars from 95. And these were Indy-only entries, which hopefully hints that they're going to release the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But this car, Scott Brayton's, in the bright Dayglow yellow Menards paint scheme, is so iconic. And having one as well that represents Buddy Lazier's car is very cool. I think these two cars might end up getting painted over as something else. These cars were Lolas, but they did have the Buick engines in real life, which again were only run at Indy with the Menards team as far as I know. They very famously had the huge engine hump at the back of their chassis, so it almost was a custom chassis in itself to fit the engine, but a cool thing to include that really makes it feel like 95. Then we come over to the Reynard Ford, and this is where things get a little bit scary. We're missing both the Chip Ganassi cars. There's no placeholders for those here, and they're included very prominently in the 98 and 2000 sets, so I'm not sure why we didn't get cars for them here. But then also an absence of a team green looking car, which was Jacques Villeneuve's team, the champion, the Indy 500 winner. It doesn't have a placeholder here, and we can of course take one of these other cars and paint that as that car, but it's going to displace some other drivers because we also don't have Robbie Gordon's Walker Racing car, the iconic Valvoline scheme, one of the most beautiful paint schemes of all time in my opinion, or a placeholder for Bettenhausen's team or the second Pac West Racing car. So it's not something I mean to harp on endlessly, but for somebody that's really looking forward to the 95 season here and hopefully a custom car set, it seems like we're gonna have to do quite a bit of fudging to get the cars to fit and have somewhat the grid from 95. Through the last couple, we've got just a couple more selections and a pretty small car list. We have the Reynard Honda, and this is Parker Johnstone's car, I believe. There's only one car in this group to select from, which if things were accurate, you'd also have Andre Ribeiro's car in this group. And then to end things out, we have the Reynard Mercedes and some couple of odd looking cars with these green and white stripes, which I think are placeholders maybe for Penske, although Penske had their own chassis. Reiza haven't produced the Penske chassis for any of the other seasons, so I think these will probably be the placeholders for Alonso Jr. and Emerson Fittipaldi. So a little bit of a scramble on the chassis and paint schemes, but still really exciting to have this set of cars or an available set of cars to match this time period in a sim like Automobilista 2. So enough gawking at the cars in the showroom. I've set us up for an 8-lap race at Reiza's newest North American track, Road America, which is the perfect circuit for these cars. A quick run from the back of the grid to show you a little bit what it was like to race IndyCar in 1995. Alright, here we are running up the hill to the start of our 8-lap race here at Road America, driving the Pac West Ford Cosworth Reynard, slotted in here behind Parker Johnstone, run down to turn number 1, up the gearbox, see if we can maybe jump to the inside, but the road's going to close up there. We were able to sneak in on the inside for turn number 1. Slide the car a little bit, got ahead of Guerrero as well. Come down to turn 3 here, or numbered 3, second gear. Want to get on the throttle nice and early there. A little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact on the exit. Hopefully the car feels okay. We'll make the long run here down to turn number 5. All the way up the gears, 6th gear, almost up to 200 miles per hour. And then down the gears to 1, get up the inside of this fake Penske here on the curbs. Able to get the run through there up the hill, lock the brakes just a little bit. Really tough fighting in a pack here around Road America, through this fast right-hand kink all the way out on the curb. Come down the hill to this tight left-hander, second gear. Slot in on the inside so we can run them out a little bit wide. So now we'll come into the carousel. Really unique corner on this track. This car understeers a little bit through here, especially on the opening lap with cold tires. Try to pick up the throttle early. Get the nice run now towards the kink. Penske's going to look towards the inside. Got a train going on the left there. But flat through the kink with the downforce setting I've got on. And a run down to Canada corner, 6th gear. We'll brake plenty late, slide up the inside of this white car. Luckily got a little extra curbing on the inside than they would have had in 95. Almost losing the wheel in my hands there. And we'll come to the last corner, 2nd gear. Easy to lock it up and run a bit wide there. But out on the curbing, we're going to have a heavy slipstream here down the front straightaway. Look towards the inside. In behind this Newman Haas. Oh, King Hero on the outside as well. I'm going to have to be boxed in. Nowhere to go, really. He's going to fade to the outside a bit. Ooh, I threw the car in there. Somehow got ahead of the white car. Going to run me out almost into the grass. That would have been grass in 95. Down to 2nd gear. See if I can hang it on the outside here. Try to get a good run. There we go, onto the straightaway. Oh, crazy couple of corners there. Able to make it work. Up to 6th gear then. Andretti in front. Hits the grass a bit. Ooh, he's almost going to collide with Hero. So I can hang it on the outside there, not able to do it. Looking for that inside fade. Andretti's going to block the inside as well. Lock up the left front, trying to defend the car behind me. He sticks in there though. Right out onto the curbs, onto the grass. Had some tough times in that corner in the past. Right, pick up the throttle and come to the carousel. Really tight racing here early on. I've done a few of these races, and sometimes they get quite spread out. Running 100% AI strength, which you can go higher, as this car behind is going to look up the inside as well. Certainly as you develop a setup, you probably run a bit faster and tune the AI up. I got them on 40% aggression, which feels pretty good. They're not quite as clumsy as they've been in the past. I want to just send it there. Not as clumsy as they've been in the past, still a bit aggressive for 40%. They don't really get less aggressive with less aggression either. 2nd gear, try not to run wide. Almost missed the apex. Now on the slipstream again, Andretti's also going to go for it. We boxed in one more time here. See if I can make him wag to the inside. We're almost 3 wide there at Road America. That's not really something you can do. side by side again with this white car behind. Down to turn 3. Leave the door open just a little bit. Slide of the car there on the exit. All right, up the gears. Andretti's got one wheel off. Hey, I can do that a bit. You can't. It's going to look to the inside here as we come down to turn 5. Right, down to second gear. Lock it up. Try not to hit the rear wing. The damage on these cars is quite good, quite visually good as well. Hopefully we don't have to experience that here with my own. So really mess up the braking there and fall back a little bit. Battling here for 19th position is not exactly going to be on the highlight reel, but it is a good battle. Sometimes the best battles happen towards the back as I get all crossed up there. Slide the car. I think I've overheated the tires maybe. White car is going to look on the inside, squeeze them there towards the inside though. Lost quite a bit of time on these two in front. Get flat through the kink then. Finally a slight moment to breathe. Just 23 cars in the race. You can only race 23 before the paint schemes start repeating, which is going to be one of the other issues as folks start to paint these cars and things. Trying to fit the grid. There's quite often way more than 23 cars in races. In 1995, the series was at a high point in many ways at that stage. So 27, 28 cars at a lot of races. All right, going to pull up quite fast on these two, but where am I going to get around? Slide to the outside, block Andretti from taking the proper line. See if I can squeeze him maybe. There we go. Side by side, wheel to wheel. Was able to slow him down. I should have got down to third gear there. He falls in behind, chop him off. I'm going to turn 3, finally in front of Andretti. See if I can slipstream hero here. The RPM gauge on the dashboard's a little out of whack. The black bar one, the numbers are pretty good. See if I can maybe make a lunge here down into turn 5, lock up the left front. That would be optimistic. The gearbox, run a bit wide into this left-hander. Just pushing a little bit too much. Need to back up the corners a bit. Zero gives it a wag. I want to give it a big send. To the inside. I don't know if we made contact there. I didn't really feel anything, but he definitely went into evasive maneuvers as I launched it in. But no matter, a pass is a pass. Get it around. King Hero. All right, flat out into the kink. Got rid of my tail. We're going to have a good run coming down to Canada Corner here. Just trying to stay in the middle of the circuit. It's such a narrow track. It was in 95 and still is now. More runoff and paved curbing and things than would have been in 95, but overall the track is the same exact layout as it was then and very much in the same spirit. Feels right at home with these cars, as do the other circuits. A lot of oversteer there. Finally got ahead of those two. They're going to repeat the same thing behind me side by side. Come across the line. So lap 5 of 8, should have enough time to catch these cars in front. See if I can put together a good lap here. Third gear, just touched the dirt on the entrance, gonna slide wide. Oh, officials don't like that, get a track warning. It's alright, we got 5 of those. Short race. So these cars drive a bit different than the 98 ones do, and I'm not sure that's just because of the update or not. Reiza said in the patch notes that they've fixed and changed some stuff with all of the Formula USA cars. But these ones, compared to how I was driving the 98 ones before, or if you also haven't driven those since, right about when they came out, these feel a little bit more alive. Definitely easier to lose the car. You can spin them out. And they don't have quite as much grip, which makes sense. The cars are a little bit different. I think to somebody that really doesn't know IndyCar racing, you might wonder what the big deal is, because truthfully, the 95, 98, and 2000 cars are all fairly similar, although they are different. And there's, for the enthusiasts, for the folks that really love the series, you're going to know the differences between them, but objectively from the outside they are quite similar. These ones definitely feel a little bit more alive. Ooh, we got a stopped car on the outside there. Raul Boisel, that's the Rahal car. Everybody in front gets held up a little bit. the Ray Hall cars. Hogan Racing. We got Teo Fabi's car in front, Adrian Fernandez, Gilles de Ferran. Could just rattle off the names on all the drivers for this year. Very iconic paint schemes for me. Right in the slipstream here of Fabi. Come to the inside. Oh, right against the pit wall. He's going to squeeze me a little bit. Some solid defending there. Come down to turn one. The inside with Fernandez, making a little bit of contact. Get the wheels linked up. The slipstream now, Fabi. Car feels all right. We do have damage on. The damage model itself is quite good with the cars. Come down to second gear. Quite a lot of pieces and things. Oh, he's going to try to hang it in there. We're right against the edge of the circuit, though. Able to get the run on him up the hill. Trying not to outbrake myself again. There we go on the inside. So sneak around Fabi. We got Gilles de Ferran in front. Jim Hall's Pennzoil. Oh, we're going to run wide. Quite a messy race for myself. These cars just came out though. I've been having a lot of fun. I've done a handful of races here, like I said, and each one has played out quite a bit different, which keeps it interesting. I think where Automobilista 2 is right now, it's a great sim to do fast races like this. You don't have a lot of time. Just pick a car, pick a track, and away you go. All right, Fabi's going to try to come up the outside into Canada corner, break it down, lock up the right front. Able to stay in front of him though. See if I can break a little bit of a gap here through the final couple of corners. Easy to run wide here, like I said, in the final one. Just want to pick up the gas as soon as possible for the long front straightaway. So we get a slight gap, but he should have a slipstream here, I'd imagine. Come across the line, just 2 more laps. Fernandez looking up the inside there, almost making contact with me with the lunge. It's quite like my last lap. Right down to second gear, and through turn 3. The dashboard is so recognizable, having played IndyCar 2 for so long. It makes sense they're modeling the same cars, but it's just spot on. It makes you appreciate how accurate the IndyCar 2 dash was. One big difference I noticed though is there's no boost meter on the dashboard here, and I'm almost positive they had one. They certainly had controls for the boost knob, and it's something you use a lot. Ooh, in IndyCar 2 is a slide the car there. You use it a ton in IndyCar 2 to save fuel and manage your engine over a run. And seemingly absent here. I couldn't find any controls to map for a boost knob. I'm almost positive IndyCar had something like that for quite a few years. Most likely in 98 as well, although I could be mistaken, but definitely in 95. So that would be something that, especially if we're going to do some longer races here that aren't just flat out sprints, you would need for strategy. Fernandez is going to try to come back on me here on the outside. Able to have the inside line, better line through there. I'll let you listen to this car for a second as we come on the front straightaway to start the final lap. Just missed my apex through turn 1. The car has such a loud turbo. That's another note that Reiza made in their notes about changes. We're improving the sounds overall. Haven't gone back to try the 98 cars yet to see if they also sound like that. It almost sounds a little too loud to my ears, but these cars did have turbos, and so maybe they were that loud from the inside. I'm not sure how anybody would know that at this point. Running up the hill. Fernandez has really given me a workout here behind. I think we're both closing up on de Ferran in front, but not being able to challenge him properly, just trying to defend from Fernandez. Try to grab an apex for once. Right behind me again. He's going to make it interesting to hit a corner for the final lap. Block the inside line. He brakes so early, able to easily outbrake him. Just dance the car on the exit, come through second to last corner here up the hill. Easy corner to spin the car if you're not careful. Then come into the final turn, lock that right front just to be good to the car on the final corner in the final lap. But come to the line, hectic race there, finishing 14th, nothing impressive, but so much fun. A bit of elbows out racing at Road America. I would have never believed it back in 1995, playing IndyCar 2 and playing it for so many years that we'd ever get something that looks this visually good. I think long ways to go to make Automobilista 2 an IndyCar sim, to have the points championship and obviously all the tracks and things. Ovals, in my eyes, as I've said in a bunch of videos, are really the next thing that needs to happen to cement this as a pretty good sim for IndyCar. But for quick races like this, it's a ton of fun. I think the AI still has some issues with strategy, and so wouldn't recommend running long races unless you can figure out how to get them to pit right. But for just a quick jump in, go race Laguna Seca, Cleveland, Road America here, Long Beach, or then any of the other countless circuits that are in Automobilista 2, which honestly, a lot of them fit the IndyCar as well, especially the South America ones. It's easy, it's fun, and it makes me grin from ear to ear, even if I'm only racing for last place. So I encourage you to try this if you like IndyCar racing from this era. Even with some of its flaws and things, I hope they're ironed out, and Reiza's given me nothing but confidence that they'll continue to work and improve the sim. So I'm sure this is not the last we've seen from them on the IndyCar front, and hope this continues to improve. I'll most likely be back with more videos of this and more races and things, especially as the cars begin to get painted and we figure out how to make some semblance of a 95 set with the cars that we have. But I hope you enjoyed this first look. A bit of rough racing there, but nothing like racing on the first night of something new and showing it off to everybody. So until next time, this has been GP Laps, and I'll see y'all again later.